G'day everyone, Alan Endres, the founder of ZuCoins and Zukaz. This is episode 8 and it's all about Zukaz. That way, there we go. Hope you enjoyed that little fella at the end. That's our little cartoon there that's going to take you and drive you guys to ZuCoin success with the Zukaz engine. Today, before we start, as you know, this is ZuTime. It's the live show that I do weekdays, 10 o'clock. Generally trying to keep it to a half an hour, but sometimes goes a bit longer. But it's all about my time being your time. And I'll take a few questions at the end of this today. There was quite a few coming through yesterday, so I'm going to look to my left a bit, but we'll just see how that goes. Now, updates. Yes, we've got another 10 wallets floating around, and we are down to a 40% rate of people struggling with bits and pieces on the first part. But we're pretty confident that with the support team, we'll nail that, and we'll probably send out another 20, I'd say, just early next week. And the boys are working hard on this this tutorial. They've been toying between an interactive one and also toying between the a PDF version that you can click your way through so that we can get more people. The most crucial bit being of the wallets has been just the way you've those that have received the SMS and those that then basically click that, select the options between their iPhone and Android, and then make sure that they can get that icon on the home page. It's just a bit of conditioning to get used to that, because, as I said, it's not a downloadable app which magically pops up as an icon on your home pages if you go through the stores. And we've talked about that in the past. Good reason for that. PWA, decentralized, no control, no third parties, and we're off and running on the big scale. So more on that, but we're quite pleased with the congratulations on the other 6 that have been playing with it. And then, of course, going through, in terms of that process there. So a question's been asked just quickly now about the soft launch. We are in the soft launch. This is what is called a soft launch. That is testing it through the first 30 and then the second 10, that's 40. As I said, we'll probably do another 20. And that's just about getting that lot ready to rock and roll for everybody else to get theirs. There's no point having 3,000 out there and we've got 500 problems once that with that main part of the blockchain or the split chain going through. So just sit tight, it'll happen, working its way through. So that's what we call, as per the advices we had many, many months ago, and it's been the greatest thing that's ever happened to work our way through that process, given the issues and stuff that we've had to get it ready. Now, let's talk Zukaz today. Zukaz, as you would recall, going back to episode 4, I would encourage you to look at that. That's the long-term value proposition of ZuCoins, the way we see it, the way we've analysed it, how we want this to occur in terms of long-term value proposition. And, of course, that's the differential between the other 6,000 coins floating out there that are anything from 1 cent to hundreds of dollars or thousands. But the game that we're playing is really the game of hunting down Bitcoin. BTC, which has jumped a little bit, 43,000 US dollars, and that's where we want to be in that place. So someone's just quickly again, I'm glancing across because it's appropriate, but Daniel, not so much worried about the 30% fees and the control. It's the control of the wallets in those stores that can be taken down any time that those entities see fit, which actually has happened with a few through Android and also through iStore, because once you are required, I mean, the iStore is just a glorified meeting place that people are used to, of which they can go searching and look for the apps that they want, which then at the end of the day is controlled by those big bodies. That's not what decentralization is about. Decentralization is about, it's in the hands of the peers, and PWA delivers that outcome. So that once this is off and running, there is no pressure to put on any of the wallet in relation to taking it down or removing it, etc. So the the issue also is that you can have a brand new wallet and you still got to get people's attention to that. And we've learnt that from Mate. They had initially 12.5 million wallets. You've got to get people to go to the store. You've got to still educate them on what to do and download. And then you've still got to have that once it's downloaded as to how to get your coins and then buy and sell. What we've done is chop that process, even though it's we're going through this soft launch phase. That process is all about instantly giving you the ability to share the wallets directly amongst yourselves by the very nature of sending a fraction or a coin, so that the recipient doesn't need to go into a store, be told that they need to get the wallet, be told that they then can get that issue in relation to the coins. We want to make it that anybody on the planet that has a phone can contact someone else in their contacts, send that fraction, which is what the whole purpose is, and then instantly get the SMS and in 2 clicks download and then put that icon on their homepage and then operate from there. So yeah, look, it's a little bit, it can be a little bit frustrating initially, but again, we are focused on the long term as to having tens and tens and tens of millions of people sharing that fractions with each other, trading and so forth. So just got to wait, and that's just how it's going to be, so that we get this this set properly. Now, in the last few episodes, we've been talking about that once you've got the wallet in your hands and the coins, it's really then about what you do with them and how you can use those coins to your advantage. Now, some people will just sit on them, and that's fine, and have them as part of their investment strategies, and that's what we talked about in episodes 3 and 4 for that long-term value proposition, where we say, anything from if you've got the database, if you've got the momentum, you've got the transaction volumes on a scale, we're using the quantity theory of money as the basis of which we can formulate values, anything from, we say, $100 through to tens of thousands of dollars if those transaction volumes are there. And part of that is the product lines that you can encourage. Now, we are just one organisation, Zukaz, that has said, well, look, we can take advantage of creating that momentum in relation to the products we have. But that doesn't stop tens of millions of developers and people with ideas coming up with their own concepts that can slot in over and above the split chain to create their own product lines relating to the ZuCoins. So that's the whole purpose of where we sit. We are just one organisation with a few ideas that we see in our business model will be a global advantage. And of course, we've covered off on virtual real estate, which we talked about that. That's in episode 5. Episode 6 is what we say is unique digital assets, which are going to compete with NFTs. We don't refer to ours as NFTs because non-fungible tokens will have their issues, where we believe that if you don't have the right processes in place, you could end up with having an NFT that relates to, say, for example, the Ethereum blockchain is a pointer to where that picture or image or video is. And if that server's not operational, well, then, of course, it goes down the toilet and there goes your NFT. What we want is the decentralization of the effectively register of participants in a particular UDA, that's a unique digital asset sector, or whatever that may be, and the network controls effectively the way in which those servers work, where the data does reside with the individual peers on their phones, which is a far superior technology capability without the risks if you're going to spend big dollars. It's risky enough just buying crypto, let alone transitioning into thinking you're sitting on a valuable digital asset, unique digital asset, which happens to be an NFT that doesn't have this support base. We then covered off on, in episode 7 was the lotteries. And that, again, have a look at that episode because that talks about the power of the historic value of savings accounts matched in with processes, etc. I'm just looking at Daniel again. Daniel, I think you need to read the material because it's just going to chew up time addressing those questions because the questions about the validation process does work on a PDA. It's inherent in the software code. I would encourage you to look at zucoins.com, have a good look at the material there because that's just an inherent question in relation to the split chain process. So I'll let you go for the moment, and we'll give someone else a bit of a chance towards the end of this live show. Now, Zukaz today is about the vouchers. Now, for those that are coming in cold, the Zukaz product is all about the augmented reality and bringing together geo-mapping. And we affectionately refer to Zukaz as the Pokemon on steroids. Now, this has been a project that's been going for a couple of years now, and we had the model quite through our test pilot projects through Albury-Wodonga in New South Wales, Australia, and also in Geelong in Victoria, Australia. And we were very pleased with the outcomes of quick adoption, tens of thousands of people joining Zukaz. It's no cost to the consumer as a free download, and it's certainly no cost to the merchants. It's all success fee based driven. Now, I might talk a few minutes about that, because in the context of Zukaz, that will then show you the significance of the vouchers, which is another product line that relates to the value proposition on the Zoo coins. Now, with the original versions of Zukaz, they are those versions and MVPs in the earlier beta testing have all been driven through the iStore and also through the Android Google stores. And it was at that point that, having built out the PWA wallet for Zoo coins, that the IT team headed by Robert, we made a conscious decision some 12 months ago with COVID that we would transition all of the programming of the apps into PWA. That is, Zukaz itself has been almost completed. There's about 2.5, 3 months of work to do post the launch of the wallet, because the wallet is integrated into the Zukaz app, and it is itself going to be a PWA app. So we're not interested in Zukaz being part of the current systems in the world that relies upon Apple or certainly Google to be a feature for people to download those either Zukaz or ZooCoin. It's all PWA. Now, PWA stands for Progressive Web App. It's effectively linked to the web, and it means that we're not governed in any respect by third parties, or you aren't once you have the apps. Now, the significance in Zukaz is even more so than the ZooCoin PWA, because it means that if you then have revenue generating mechanisms in your app, you don't need to pay 15 or 30% of your gross turnover to Apple or Google. And that's where they generate billions and billions of dollars, unbeknownst to the users, of those transactions at the cost of that merchant database. So by having a PWA, there's no fee requirement from Zukaz's perspective, which means monies that are made or monies that the merchants wish to make on top in our business don't pay those fees, and therefore can generate a lot more profit to themselves. Now, in fact, Fortnite is a case that's been in the United States, where one of the big gaming companies wanted to sort of move that link to third-party processors and avoid Apple, and Apple took that app down. Now, that's a massive damage factor to the business, to the consumers who are irritated that they can't access those apps. But they, to their credit, have taken them to the US courts, had initial successes, and that'll move its way through the court system that says you can't monopolise that business profile for merchants, which is why Zukaz has been having this rebuild for the last 12 months, which we took advantage of because of COVID. Because the Zukaz model, if you can now imagine being this Pokemon concept, is where the merchants and consumers come together in a gamification environment that has been massively successful when we launched for online on location businesses. So what happens is that the merchants normally would be putting out millions of dollars or even tens of thousands of dollars, which they've been doing for the last 25 odd years, and spend that with the social media companies, Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest and the like. And as they're spending that money, it's all about ads that bring the consumer's attention to something you're promoting, whether it's the product or your website or links. And the problem with that is that you can spend this money up front, which is a huge cost to the merchant, before they even get a sale. Now, when you finally drill down to the analytics, it turns out that for the money you spend, and we're talking serious billions of dollars in the receipt of revenues, and that's how these companies survive. You know, Facebook survives because they get billions of dollars in revenue from these very advertising mediums, and then they put a lot of that back into hosting the very data that needs to be hosted by that's the Facebook data in terms of pictures and videos and things. So there's a cost exercise there, but once you spend that money, there's less than a 0.08% chance of you getting a conversion. Now, what I mean by that is you could spend all this money, you get millions of page impressions and the excitement of all of the social media followers, and I've got thousands and hundreds of thousands of people writing good and bad stories and all the rest of it. But at the end of the day, you extract from that only 0.08% of people actually going in back to the merchant to buy some goods and services. And that's where it falls down. And it has fallen down for many, many years on that success rate. So what Zukaz does, ladies and gentlemen, for those that don't know, is says to the merchant, all of the advertising functionalities are at your disposal. And you can create a augmented reality. So in this case, it may be this cup, Zukaz branding, and that cup becomes an augmented reality three-dimensional form that the merchant wishes to promote. Now, as he's promoting that, he creates that, and he gets the benefit of dropping or putting behind that instantly, that three-dimensional form, a value proposition for his customers, for the money to go to the customer and not to the social media powerhouses. Now, behind that cup, and this has been a live example, we've had a coffee shop here in Albury-Wodonga in the testing, and they created $5 augmented reality coffee cups. And over a weekend, they pushed out just over 279 vouchers. Now, there's no cost up front. It's the merchant's responsibility under global consumer laws is to protect the consumer, that if they do get that three-dimensional form, which is spinning around in their phones when they go hunting, and they collect it, that becomes a voucher of $5, which is in the vault. Now, the obligation is to make sure the merchant, when that is redeemed, actually pays that $5. So the merchant at that stage has paid no money up front. He's committed, in this example, 279 odd $5 vouchers. And the interesting thing was, over that weekend, there was 260 odd of those were collected. 260. So the stats are staggering. And that was from real life hunting and collecting, where the consumer goes onto the map. He sees that these these three-dimensional forms are all over the map. In that case, we had a ring fence around Albury-Wodonga, about a 50-kilometre radius. And people went out and looked for those vouchers and collected them. Now, when they collect them as a consumer, you've got two options. You can either redeem that back to the merchant, and there's redeeming terms in sense of how long that voucher is available for. The merchant might only set it for 3 days. Now, in the instance of that coffee business, there was a 95% redemption success. And of that is the $5 coming back into the business, there was then a 43% increase in sales. So people didn't just redeem for the coffee. They bought some cakes and other goodies that were in the coffee shop, sandwiches and so on. So the proof of our program was well and truly entrenched with all sorts of business models, hamburger shops, beauty suppliers, particularly the hotels and pubs. We were able to actually see at night 2 pubs competing with each other, of which vouchers were dropped from one pub directly into the lines of people waiting to get into another pub down the road, and dragging those people away from that pub into the other premises based on the vouchers that they were putting out. And some of them were significant because, you do a $10 or $15 voucher in a pub, and of course, you don't just drink $10 or $15 of drink, especially with the younger ones. And of course, that turns into $50 or $60 of spend. So we know it's a huge success on taking our time, another soft launch capability in terms of the vouchers. Now, the other choice of the voucher is that if I've got the $5 voucher and I can't use it, the system allows the consumer to on-sell that to the value up to the $5 to a third party who probably couldn't be bothered going hunting and collecting over that weekend period. So there are people making a business out of the on-selling of the vouchers. Now, even if you only get $1 as a result of that $5 voucher, you can multiply that out. And it's a very big business, which we experienced in Geelong with the university students, that they could go out, hunt and collect all these wonderful vouchers. And you're talking some serious voucher monies. You're talking hotel accommodations, $150, $200 vouchers. You're talking electrical goods, $300, $400 vouchers. And it builds up in time because the merchant says, look, once that coffee little spinny item's gone out, and just imagine it's in your phone when you see it and it's out there. And now when you get that, not only do you get the voucher as a consumer, you also get the ability of the merchant to put all the advertising he wants behind that augmented reality form. In other words, when you click on it, you are able to then review the merchant's website. You can have live broadcasts. You can do all sorts of things you want through that augmented reality voucher. And in fact, in early experimentation, we had the vouchers that were very special. So you could have the spinning cup. In this case, it was a beer, can of beer, and it's a live one. So when you hunt and collect that, you can press the button and you're actually live streaming direct to the merchant, the bloke behind the bar, and he can encourage you then and there to say, look, in addition to the $10 that you've received, Freddie, come across and we've got we'll give you another 3 pots of beer or wine or whatever it is whilst you're discussing with the bartender live as a result of that voucher. And that's got some very serious implications down the road with our strategies with those in the music industry and those that are wanting to convey live messages as a merchant to describe their products. It connects merchant and consumer directly. Now, the exciting bit is that because there's no upfront monies to the merchant and because they can overlay the map with all their goodies, as in the 3-dimensional forms, they can protect their brands as well. So you can have unique identifiers in the brands for whether it's McDonald's or even Zukaz, that you can identify that they're legitimate brands that are putting out these products. And that comes because of the ZuCoin. We talk about the ZuCoin with there's no fractions restrictions, which means that the merchants can put out 1/1,000,000th of a fraction of a ZuCoin, which costs next to nothing, and attach that to their brands that you can then verify as the ownership of that brand to make sure what's being sold to you is legitimate. So it has a legitimacy in terms of the products that are on the network. If you're uncomfortable with a product that's been pushed out, then of course, you wouldn't buy the goods. But having said that, there's a lot of due diligence that goes through bringing merchants on board, which we're doing through the point of sale machines, basically through the MasterCard and Visa networks, which identify good merchants. So that's the voucher side and the impact. Now, if you think of that, we want merchants to put a lot of vouchers out, which has happened, and also they can get cluttered. So we've had to work through the last 12 months of creating counters, if you like, of the type of volume of vouchers that hit the maps, so that you can drill down and search. So the search capabilities are very powerful from the consumer. You can have friendlies, you can have favorites, you can have categories of industries that are of interest to you, whether it's clothing or shopping, or could be real estate, it could be accounting, it could be legal services. Anything that you can imagine, every business on the planet can now promote directly without any upfront costs and give that money to the consumer. That's the difference. Now, sure, Zukaz charges a 10% success fee on the redemption, but that's the other 90% isn't going to Facebook, or it's not going to Google or Instagram. And that's the huge advantage we have in our business model. Now, from the consumer's point of view, the hunting and collecting means we want to encourage consumers to in the first instance, go out and about and outdoors and collect these vouchers. Now, of course, COVID changed the dynamic of our business model, of which, circling back, why we wanted the PWA Zukaz app, which will be released, which works in conjunction with the PWA ZuCoin PWA app. And we wanted to encourage consumers to go out and about and get these vouchers. Now, the interesting rethink on that was we need to accommodate the virtual collection of vouchers because of COVID. Obviously, lockdowns and restrictions, and certainly that'll change in time, that people will be out and about a lot more. It's already happening Europe and America, lesser extent here in Australia. So what the rebuild is about is that we can create for consumers virtual avatars that you can sit in your room and you can place your avatar anywhere on the maps that allows you to draw the attention of the merchant in reverse to deliver you those vouchers. So the system's going to allow consumers basically in reverse thinking contact the merchant for a voucher. So instead of you sitting back looking at the maps waiting for it to happen, you'll be in a position to go through your most exciting merchants, and in fact, through your avatar, your virtual little person, which is why we had today's little intro with the little Al. Little Al will be able to be placed on the map and also make virtual contact with the merchants to deliver vouchers that I'm going to haggle with and want to be part of that receipt of money from the merchant. Now, the merchant doesn't care how he gets it to you, whether it's me initiating the voucher call or the merchant finding me on the map. But the beauty of the virtual thing is that we've taken a model which has worked around for many years on social media, where they encourage people to have their followers and listen to some of the good stuff and some of the dribble that goes on social media. But the fact is you build up a following, but there's no outcome for the consumers when you're on those social media platforms, other than the glory of saying I've got 300,000 followers. Now, some of them make a lot of money out of that because they get byproducts and they create the attention through that advertising medium, but it's not powerful enough if I have retention of that data. So the reality is that with that virtual following, you can attract people on a scale that will allow you to create hotspots virtually on, again, mentioning the virtual real estate, of areas that you want to be at. Now, if you've got 300,000 people that you pull together and they're all virtually on the map, that becomes a hotspot that the merchants can zoom in on and start to send to that hotspot, that virtual hotspot, directly to those 300,000 people their vouchers. Now, you don't have to take the vouchers. You can let them go or you can be selective. The reality is, though, you will make money as a result of the hotspots you're creating through your virtual avatars. And those avatars don't just mean relationships with the merchants. It means amongst yourselves. Because remember, we've got a trading platform. And that trading platform allows you, the consumer, to put up your own vouchers, in effect, of what you want to buy and sell. Now, it's sort of an eBay meets some of these programs on steroids, but it's an augmented reality sense that you can then place those through, and you're creating communities, virtual communities, if you don't wish to go out hunting and collecting in real life. So the purpose of that, of course, at the end of the day, is that we want to see the explosion of vouchers. And I talk about a voucher could be anything contained in that three-dimensional form. It may very well be you want to trade some of your virtual real estate. You may want to trade your unique digital assets. You may want to exchange photos and pictures, because the thing is, Zukaz with its own PWA doesn't have data retention. You're going to hold the data in your own phones, which means we don't have our stress factor on hosting costs and overheads. We don't need to have multi-billion-dollar server farms to retain the data that needs to be transmissioned between each already of those processes. Now, predictably, people say, well, you've got some of those deals that are happening through Facebook and Instagram. Well, that's right. They have those programs, and guess who's making the money? Facebook, Instagram. You're getting your sales, but you're not getting a share of the advertising clip. That's the point of difference. This is your data for your retention, of which you make the money on the way in which you behave with that data. Now, they're not going to offer that ever in their business models, because they want to be paid up front. Now, in this business model, there's no upfront payment to Zukaz. You create the environment of the advertising you want. But as a kicker to that, which none of these corporates can do, and this is the game changer with Zukaz, is that we're going to reward both merchants and consumers on the basis of, A, in the case of the merchants, the more vouchers they put into the marketplace by the on the map through on-location businesses or online redemptions through their virtual mechanisms, they will receive fractional entitlements to ZuCoins as their bonus encouragement. So there are free fractions of ZuCoins from the Treasury that will be placed in the hands of merchants to encourage the greater participation of money not flowing into Facebook or Instagram or, it's $500 billion industry, but flowing to consumers. That's the key. We'll be rewarding with fractional entitlements to ZuCoins, because the merchants in our studies over the last 12 months actually want to retain and hold some value in the crypto, being the ZuCoin, than is leaving cash at bank. There is no advantage in leaving cash at bank. So that's the first reward. The second is, B, is the consumers. Now, the more vouchers that you hunt and collect, either virtually, or the more vouchers you hunt and collect through real life, and it's an exciting thing to see in real life when we get back to that, but the more you collect and the more you redeem and the more you trade amongst each other, you will also be rewarded with fractions of ZuCoins. And that's never happened. And it won't happen. Nobody's going to reward you anything, because you are the key to these organisations for the last 20 or 30 years of their powerhouse revenue engines. Everything you do is retained by these powerhouse engines for their own advantage, to analyse and work out what's the best things that you're interested in, so that we can then flood you with ads, so we can make money from the merchant. We're taking away the middleman, the aggregator. And why? Because the split chain technology allows it. It's not just about the ZuCoin. It's the split chain technology that puts that fractional, fragmented data into your phone for your retention. Now, there's nothing to be trusted about us in Zukaz having data, because we're not holding the data. I mean, some of the thought bubbles that come through, and we counter this in the marketing because people don't understand. The retention of data is by the peer. That's the whole point of the exercise. That's the whole point of the work that's gone into and the soft launch of ZuCoins, because the split chain is the key. We've had the patents in place for 13 plus years. We know what data fragmentation can achieve. We've achieved that internally, the way in which we make data fragile and the way in which data can be stored of individual basis of the peers. So the reality here is that with those rewards of coins and driving that engine, we circle back to a true user case in the crypto space. You don't just want to be looking at 6,000 crypto and throwing a dart at the board and hoping for the best because someone's come up with an idea that may or may not increase the price through that demand pressure. The bottom line is there's 100 million ZuCoins in the market space, so we know there's a limitation on volume, and that forms part and parcel of the quantity theory of money, which is a long-term analysis that the only variables you can drive is user uptake, which is what we're able and have the capacity to do through our product lines. You increase the transactional turnover between people and participants. And more importantly, you're talking trillions and trillions of dollars in the current transactional global network of buying goods and services, which can convert to the firepower of ZuCoins being participants in that environment. Now, one of the things that consumers don't think about, because we don't really care as consumers, we go and buy, a $5 cup of coffee. We pay for it with our cards. And of course, those card programs are aggregating your data as well. Every single transaction is stored and recorded through MasterCard and Visa. Every single transaction. And it has to be, because they can't process the transactions otherwise between the bank networks and the consumer who's holding the card wanting to access his money. Now, someone pays a price for that. Well, guess who? The merchant. The merchant doesn't get a free ride on getting your money. All he wants to do is get paid. But there's a fee. Now, that fee can be as low as 0.65% or as high as 10 or 15%, depending on the risk nature of the business. And one of the things about the credit card and debit card industry is if there is a fraud, the consumer doesn't care because he rings the bank and gets a refund. But guess what? the merchant ends up wearing and being lumped with the problem. Because if he doesn't meet his fraud ratios, he ends up having to refund the funds on the reversal of the transactions. So the loser, the biggest loser in that network is actually you, the consumer, because they then build that price into the goods you're very buying. Now, if you remove that friction, you remove that third-party element of data aggregation residing with the peers, you put it into an advertising concept, which is Zukaz, and you unleash that advertising directly between merchants and consumers and let them do their own thing and let them take advantage of augmented reality and the way in which the world is heading with digitisation and the way in which you view and see advertising either in real life or through virtual life, then of course there's only one possible outcome. The consumers are given a huge advantage on the pricing of those goods and services because the merchant can afford to give you a far greater return through the vouchers that you can then use. I mean, another industry where we've got a lot of excitement is some of our clients who are eagerly awaiting for the release of version 2 of Zukaz, which accommodates both, as I said, the virtual and the real world environments of this Pokemon Go on steroids, is the hotel industry. Now, they have been bashed around and suffered as a result of COVID, but they're itching to get going again. Now, if you've been out of business in the hotel industry or you're in the industries where you've got tourism and all the rest of it, you can't just switch on and off these businesses and then the consumer expects to wander in and get a discount from the very hotels and things who have suffered for 12 months. Now, you can't expect the hotel industry or the tourism industry to wake up one morning who have been struggling to pay their rent, struggling to pay their wages, their staff, struggling to keep the business going, and then say to them, write out a check for $10,000, $15,000, $50,000, $100,000 to create an ad on Facebook so we can get people's attention about the discounts we're going to offer. Mathematically, it doesn't make sense. Economically, it's insane. Now, Zukaz solves that problem because it says to those very merchants, come along, do all your advertising, and if you come back and circle back to the hotel industry, they're paying tens and tens of millions of dollars to Expedia and Trivago. Why? Because they're just advertising portals. They're glorified advertising portals that take their 25%, 30% clip, and then you finally get a discount. Well, forget it. Allow the merchant through this process to give that $120 room discount direct to the consumer. And that's the beauty of decentralization. That's the beauty of data retention in a fragmented way. Because data is data, digital data, whether it's a unique digital asset, whether it's virtual real estate, whether it's a picture, whether it's a video, whether it's a promotion, whether it's a PDF, it doesn't matter. Everything digitally can be broken down and retained by the peer. And of course, the great news is that if the merchants start accepting, which is easily integrated into their systems, the receipt of coins instead of processing through your normal channels, through fiat, through the cards, guess what? They don't pay any fees because the way the ZuCoin model has been built such that it's free. The transaction flows are free, they are instant, and they move the coins for the goods and services direct to the merchant. Now, on a global scale, that comes back to, again, I can't press this enough, MV equals PT. You embrace the merchant, you take on the transactions, you give the benefit to the consumer, you uplift the data and the cash flows to the merchants, and they will deliver. They will deliver all augmented reality beyond your wildest imagination that you will be viewing. You can view a three-dimensional form of a TV set. Now, that promotion may come directly from Hyson, which means they're giving the discount the moment you walk into your electrical store in relation to those goods and services. So the vouchers, it's important to understand that the term voucher is nothing more than putting product into an augmented reality form, whether it's from the consumer or whether it is from the merchant, and any merchant, which allows others to access, to trade, to be rewarded with ZuCoins, to be rewarded with the voucher itself, to on-trade those vouchers to make money, and to take anybody, and which we learnt in Geelong through the university students. You don't have to be a genius to either collect vouchers in real life or virtually to make money. Why? Because there's plenty to go around. It's not going into the giants that have had this monopoly all these years, and how they control and who they want their apps to be held with, which is the most ingenious part of the split chain network, which I love, and that's the progressive web app. It puts the power into the individual. It can't be disconnected. It remains as long as the networks of the peers wish to keep working with that network. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd invite you, I'd encourage you, I urge you to review the Zukaz.com, ZuCoins.com. There's plenty of information there. Don't get hung up on worrying about the wallets and how long it takes, etc. That'll taking its course. That's working through so that we don't want, as I said a million times, we don't want 10 million people with 9 million queries and problems. Because as I said, once this disconnects, everybody's on their own. But it's a wonderful feeling to be on your own, that a merchant can wander in, get the code, and instantly accept ZuCoins as easy as a press button on their website. They can easily send it direct to you, whatever promotional material on vouchers that they want. You can easily reject or accept. You can easily trade. And it's on a scale that takes that formula, MV equals PT, because the only two variables we're worried about is massive transactional volumes and a massive surge in the velocity and the movement of those transactions. Now, that's it for me today on the Zukaz side of things. I'm going to look at a few questions now. So let's just, we've had a few guys I've already sort of covered off on a couple of things there, but Clive is indicating that the advertising can be more localised to the consumer, therefore more relevant. Well, you're on the money, Clive. Is exactly right. Let's think about what Clive has just said. You know, if we're based in a small outback town, and we tend to forget that the cities have taken the dominance of this, you know, in relation to that. But if you've got outback towns with that, you know, might only have 1,000 people or 500 people in that local community, the merchants in that community can come together as a small town, and we've seen this with towns that we drop vouchers in Corowa, a small town in New South Wales, in Australia here at least, where those towns can share the vouchers amongst themselves at zero cost, whether you're the local pub, whether you're the local store, whether you're the local chiropractor, hairdresser, it doesn't matter. And you're giving those locals a greater advantage to be able to push their message through without the worry and concern in relation to dollars up front. So you can strategically target market as little or as greater that you want using the geo mapping. Now, those that have an online business, of course, the exciting part there is that you can start to realise that if you've got hotspots of consumers, which may be located all around the world, whether it's in Cambodia, whether it's in the Bahamas, or whether it's in the United States or Australia or Portugal or Europe, doesn't matter. They can identify the hotspots of clusters of people, clusters of virtual people, and they can readily drop their vouchers to see what the collection rate, success rates are. Now, if that's not successful and they don't get the redemptions, well, then they can identify the analytics, and they can decide that, you know, West Australia is far more receptive to an online business that's selling books rather than, you know, Northern Territory in our case. So you don't waste the ads that you want target your market, your consumers. Now, a lot of the merchants we deal with already have significant databases. One of them I haven't mentioned names, but it's in the hotel industry, and they have 8 or 9 million members already. So the onboarding process is quite simple, and that's in a number of countries. They're able to use this technology. They're able to avoid Trivago and Expedia, and they can directly put that money to that database. So the reverse applies to the consumer. If you have a good following and you are showing analytics that your following is an amazing group of people that are like-minded in a certain industry sector, whatever that may be, then of course the merchants can search and add you as their favourite for wanting to push that particular product and those vouchers, because you see it as a success. So that's a win-win. Now, just following down, I think most of those questions have been answered. There's a couple of hecklers in there, but we enjoy the hecklers that come through the site. They just don't quite understand the technologies there, everybody. But of course, we do monitor and track all of that in case there's something there that we need to follow through in our long-term goals and marketing. And we get a lot of value out of that, in fact. But again, I guess the essence of the way the social media world operates is one of simply that they don't realise they're making money for others by the content and the way they draw their commentaries, etc., which is exactly the point, that it's far more productive to avoid the way in which the current world of social media environment works, because the only winners are filling the shoes and the pockets with some serious monies are the big giants that are currently controlling the industry. So our business model is about pushing it back into the hands of those that count, those that want access to such technology with no upfront costs, no monthly installation fees, no transaction fees, etc., which then converts where we focus is the long-term value proposition of the valuable, we see extremely valuable ZuCoin in this as the glue in this ecosystem. So enough from me today. Thank you for your time and attention. Be kind to each other. Be ZuKind because it's ZuTime. Take care.